What is up, everybody? Ed Gow Jr. here from Dad Central. Really excited for another episode of the Dad Central show with my co-host, co-producer, Drew Solon. What's up, Drew?
Well, like I said, it's a long weekend. So if you're in Canada, probably Victoria Day. If you're in the US, Memorial Day. And I'm just looking forward to having a lot of fun with the kids actually this weekend. So up to some adventures, up to some fun, maybe even do a little something to help people out. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's what's up.
Excellent. And just want to say, before anything else, the Dad Central show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care, who believes care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. And thank you again for the continuous support for a little while now of what we do with Dove Men Plus Care. Drew, how important has that been for our mission?
I think it's been crucial to have a partner that really believes in the value of relationships and wants to see that come about. They're with this partnership. We've been really focused on educating dads on the importance of their role, of how they really impact the development of their children, but also the strength of their family. And so I think that's pretty important. So I'm grateful for their support and to continue on in this new venture for this year.
Yeah, it's a great collaboration. We are, Dad Central, one of our cores is helping fathers and their families. And it is great to have a partner such as Dove Men Plus Care, who believes in that, not only financially, but values wise. And they walk the walk and talk the talk, or talk the talk, walk the walk. They do the receipts. So we're really appreciative of that. Drew, we have another epic conversation today, but we got a gang coming on today.
Yeah, the National At-Home Dad Network, which to me has been, well, I've learned they've been around since 1996. And so I'm really excited to hear more about this group. I'm really excited to get to know each of these dads and just have a great conversation.
So I don't want any fighting amongst them. So I'm going to bring them all up at the same time. I don't want no egos getting in the way. So we got them all for today.
Hey, Drew.
Hey, what's
Jonathan.
going on, gentlemen? What's up?
Oh, ready for a great conversation.
Thank you so much. Well, what we'd like to do with all our new friends, if with each one of you, just take a few moments to introduce yourselves, and then we'll carry it on from there.
All right, who wants to go first?
You go, Jonathan.
First.
You go, Jonathan.
I'll go first.
El Presidente.
I'm Jonathan Heisey Grove. I'm president of the National At-Home Dad Network. I've been a dad for 11 years, or an at-home dad for 11 years, excuse me. And I started my journey just after losing my job, and just kind of went right into the role of being a caregiver at home. And I got involved with the National At-Home Dad Network about a year later, when I went to Home Dad Con, which it wasn't called Home Dad Con back then, but the convention when it was in my area, and I've been involved ever since. Just love what the guys do, what they represent, and I'm proud to be part of moving that mission forward.
Excellent. Who's next?
My name is Matt Strain. I've been a dad now for a little over 8 years. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. I got involved with the National At-Home Dad Network after I had been I became a stay-at-home dad the moment that my kids were born. It was kind of the plan from the beginning. My wife is a physician. I was a professional chef. It was just a question of money. As a chef, I was never going to out-earn her. So this was an anticipated move. I spent the first 2 years as an at-home dad in a pretty dark place. I was really isolated, didn't really have contact with anybody, and stumbled across the convention also happening in my backyard, because it moves around year to year. And went to the convention and fell in love. Within a year after that, I was helping on the convention planning committee with the food and beverage end of things. And in 2019, ran for the board of directors. And as of this year, I became the secretary for the organization.
Nice, excellent.
All right. 2 down, 2 to go.
I'll go next. So my name is Sergio Rosario Diaz. I am living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, because I am a military spouse. And I became a stay-at-home dad in 2018 when living in the Washington, D.C. area and having a little girl. Spaces for childcare, like on post, are like the list is like a year and a half long. So we went to the private, childcare sector, and they said, well, we'll charge you $2,400 a month without snacks. And you're like, what? $2,400 a month?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So we came to the conclusion, okay, I was a social worker back then. I said, we can make a move. We were, had orders for North Carolina back then in DC, and said, well, let's adjust the process and start this a little bit earlier. And I became a stay-at-home dad back then. I'm all about the community. I'm also from Puerto Rico. I think I bring a lot of representation into the community, into the organization also, because I've been involved with my own community, which is the largest Latino dad community. And I decided we need to unify. We need to think about, dads as one. Fatherhood doesn't have a face. Let's talk about fatherhood instead of, talking about each of our own communities. And I think the National at-home network is the perfect organization to do that, because we cater to all dads. We're inclusive and actually mobilize all those dads within our concept of the convention. So I was looking for the action. Where's the action at? And I became, I attended the convention. I was elected as a board member, and I am loving every single minute with these guys right here. We're very active, talk every day, and get our hands super dirty working on things that, behind the scenes, but you get a lot of those.
So, Grady.
All right, I'm last. My name is Grady Black. I live just a short hop, skip, and a jump away from Sergio, and a little bit of a longer skip and a jump from Matt, right on Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Like Sergio, I'm also a military spouse, but I am also retired from the Air Force. I was formerly an air traffic controller. I retired almost 4 years ago, and that's also the same amount of time that I've been a stay-at-home dad. And I just kind of rolled into it and decided that doing air traffic control wasn't stressful enough. Why not become a military spouse and a stay-at-home dad?
You're just directing a different kind of traffic.
And Grady's just saying that he has such a serious face. Then he pulls out one line. I go, oh, okay, all right. This is good stuff. Good stuff. Well, gentlemen, we are really excited to have a great conversation with you today. And we're wanting to learn from you. And we're all in this together. So I just really want to bless all of you and all your community for all the hard work that you're doing to help fathers and families around the world. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem. Drew, do you want to start off, or you want me to start off today?
Yeah, there's so much that I could easily pick up on from each of the stories that have been shared. So why don't I start with this? Jonathan, you came into this with a challenging event.
Yes.
And it was kind of like you were thrust into it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about what that process was like and how you navigated that, but also then how you got connected to this organization? Because I feel like anyone who's listening who might, the pandemic has been pretty challenging. A lot of people have thrust into situations that they haven't expected. How would they manage it? Maybe you can give us some hindsight to give some wisdom on how to navigate that based on your story.
Sure. So I'll go back and say, when my wife and I decided we were going to have kids, we were both full-time employees. We were both working full-time jobs. And one of the key parts of that was finding a place for daycare. This was back in, oh my God, I'm going to date myself now. This was back in 1997 or so, 1998. And so trying to find daycare at that time, I was living in Massachusetts. That was difficult because just like Sergio was saying, the cost of daycare, it can be really difficult, really hard on families. And so I changed my job around that time to an employer that actually had daycare on site. It was amazing to be able to have that support right there on hand. So I joined that company. It was Reebok at the time. Joined Reebok, and we were literally on the cusp of having our son, like the day before, go to daycare, an offsite daycare. And the daycare at Reebok said, "We've got an opening. You want it?" Yep, you bet we do. Which saved us. I mean, you still got to pay for it, but still cost us some money. But to have the on-site was really important because then I could at least interact with my son on occasion while I was at work. But it took its toll. And then 4 years after I joined them, I got the boot unexpectedly. But one of the first things that happened, we had all just come off of vacation, a 4th of July vacation. And one of the first things I asked of the person in HR was, can my son stay here for the week until I get my footing and figure out what we're going to do for him? Because that's going to be a hard transition for a child to come back, join a group, go back to his daycare, be the star of the week that week, and then be suddenly pulled out because you're gone, the kid's gone, was the mentality. And I said, no, you can't do that. So I was given the leeway to have my son keep coming back for that week. And while he was at daycare, I was looking around for alternative daycares or preschools, actually, at that point in the area. He was of the age where he could join a preschool. And so I started looking for that. My primary goal once I got let go was, what do I do for my son? How do I care for him? How can I meet his needs? My needs became secondary. It's like I want to make sure that my son is in a stable place rather than put him through all sorts of stressors so I can find a job again. And we were lucky in that my wife was also in a transitional period with her employment. She was sort of looking for work. So when it was the summer of that particular year, 2011, and she started looking for work in the DC area. She had a colleague that worked down here, and he's like, come down here, find work down here. So we made a big move. We moved from Massachusetts to Virginia to follow my wife's career, because just like Matt was saying, my wife was going to make more than me than trying to find a job. So it's better to follow her career than try and build mine up again. And so we moved here, and then I worked on trying to find preschool, trying to find ways to keep my son active, but also be active with him. And that became a big transition, because it's one thing to lose your job and become invisible in a community of parenting. It's another thing to join a parenting community and then move away from the community you've known for 20 years. So I came down here sort of blind and didn't know where to go and what my resources would be. And I just so happened to come across, I was taking my son to a rec center that it was having an afternoon program. And I hung around with him, and in most scenarios, it's a bunch of moms that are hanging out, or in our case, was it either moms or nannies or a mixture. But there was this one guy. He's kind of standing over here. He's like 5 feet away, and he comes over. And he's like, so you just here for the day, hang out with your kid, or what? What's I'm not. No, I'm an at-home dad. He goes, oh, so am I. So my journey with the National At-Home Dad Network started with him, and found out about the community in our area, and started to develop a rapport with some of the dads in the area. And the convention was there, the National At-Home Dad Network's annual convention. So he's like, come to the convention, meet some new dads. So I found my journey being one of trying to take care of my child versus trying to take care of me, and went from there.
I want to jump in, and I want Matt, Sergio, and Grady. I have a question for each one of you.
Mm.
You're all pros at being stay-at-home dads now, right? I know you are.
Sure, we'll go with that.
But what were the early days like of being? I see Matt say, I'd love to get some insight, and this is all beneficial because more and more dads, I believe, are looking at this or have transitioned to this because of pandemic, and they're still in the early stages. So each one of you have a little bit of a head step, and not only sharing some of the challenge, but also how you develop. So I'd like to know the early days. So who would like to start first on that?
I would say is the dealing with the fact, right, that you created a plan, and there might be people looking sometimes from our own families or the outside and making comments on how things are running. I think that's a very a great aspect that people don't talk a lot about, where there is a situation that you're dealing with, like in the playground, or is a situation that you're dealing with your previous coworkers or your family members or your neighbors. You get comments like Mr. Mom and all these things that people start commenting, and I think it takes a while within the relationship. Number one, it has to be lots of communication. And number two, it takes a while for a brand new father. Remember, as a kid is born, a family is also born. We're creating these fundamentals for the family to be stable, to be created and developed. And I think that's one of the facts that when you become a stay-at-home dad, you're also growing as a human being. And people forget these things. They think by instinct we're going to know everything, we're going to be able to know how to handle things, and we are also human beings, and just as moms they are learning to, we are learning. So I think, to me, that's the most important aspect and the most difficult thing that I faced.
Great stuff. And just before someone else chimes in, I always say that when you become a dad, whether you have one child or no child, it impacts your partner, you, and any other children. So it impacts everyone. So I really appreciate that perspective. Brady or Matt?
So for me, a really hard part of it is there's completely unreasonably, but there's a stigma attached to being a stay-at-home father. It is a completely outdated concept, but the idea is that, women care for children and men are supposed to be out there earning the money to support the family. I knew I was going into this role before we even started working on having a kid. And it still hit me kind of hard when I stepped away from a 25-year career as a chef. Because like so many other men in America, and I'm assuming men in the world, my identity was very tightly tied to what my job was. People knew me as I was Matt the chef. Most of my friends worked in the food industry, so obviously my new schedule as the father of a young child was not conducive to spending time with them, because their nightlife starts at midnight and ends at 4 a.m. And while I was awake at those times, I was not looking to go out partying. There was a lot of social isolation. There was also a lot of judgment that I ran into, and I can't speak for anybody else out there. But honestly, there were multiple times that I would take my daughter to the park that is literally 5 blocks away from my home. And within about 5 minutes of her running off to go and play on the equipment by herself, somebody from that group of moms that was sitting over in the corner would walk over and they would always ask the same question. It wasn't, oh, hey, how old's your kid? It was always, so which one's yours? Which comes across as a really polite way of saying, you have a kid, right? Like, why is there a man in the park in the middle of the day? And that hurts. I mean, there's no nice way of putting it. It hurt. Um, it hurts when you're taking your kid out and you can't find a changing table. I went to a Durham Bulls game with my in-laws, and it came time to change my daughter her diaper, and I looked at my wife. I'm like, "Hey, you hang out with your parents. I'll go take her." I went to 7 bathrooms
Wow.
in that baseball stadium. Not one men's room had a changing table. Eventually, I went back, and my wife had to change her. On our way out, I made a comment at the suggestions table that, hey, I'm a stay-at-home dad and I change diapers too. And I was told that they had one family restroom in the entire stadium right behind home plate. And I mean, this is a minor league baseball stadium, but I mean, still, you're talking about a lot of people. There was one place in that entire baseball stadium for me to change my child's diaper. Now that has since changed. They now have changing tables in all of the men's rooms at the Bulls Stadium. But at the time, those kind of things happening really make you feel erased as a parent. It really makes you feel like, somehow as a father, you are less than. And we're not. Finding this organization, one of the things that we've pushed from the beginning, and that really hit home with me, is to own the fact that you were a stay-at-home dad. This is not an easy job. This is a lot harder than most of us ever thought it would be. And not everybody can do this. I go away for around a week every year to go to the convention. And when I come home, my wife is so appreciative of all the things that I do all day, because my wife is a wonderful person, but being home with the kids for an extended period of time, that's not her wheelhouse. That's not what she's good at. And I'd like to believe at this point it is what I'm good at.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Grady?
I'll piggyback off of what Matt started with, and it goes with breaking the stigma. Because I happened to roll into retirement just as my daughter was getting ready to be born, just a few months after that. And one of the questions that I would start fielding answers to a whole lot was, "Oh, you're retired now. And what are you doing?" It's like, "I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad." And the follow-up question to that would be is, "What else are you going to do?" And it's like, what else do I need to do? This job is hard enough. I mean, you don't necessarily ask a stay-at-home mother. It's like, what else are you going to do? It's like you're fulfilling 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 jobs, just with all the work you're doing to raise your child or children. And it's like, why is there this extra requirement on my part as a stay-at-home father? And it's breaking that stigma. It's like, all right, the dads are supposed to be the caregivers and providers and everything's like, well, yes, I'm providing something that's a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better term, can't even think of the word now. I'm just drawing a blank. But just basically, you're providing something else than actually just financial assistance. Bringing home the bacon for the family. It's just like I'm here doing what's been traditionally the mom's job. And it's tough to get the other mothers to see that. It's tough to even get other dads to see that, whether they're stay at home or otherwise, unless they are somehow wearing your shoes. And that's where I was able to come into the community with these guys and just immediately just found acceptance. Is like, and I was living in Germany at the time when my daughter was born. So had a small group of guys that were out there. We were able to kind of come together and band together a little bit, and then eventually found this group and joined their Facebook page, and didn't really necessarily get into participating because I knew it was like, all right, I'm automatically 6 hours ahead of you guys just for time zones. So it'd be tough to communicate and just really, really network with you guys right off the bat. And then I moved to Texas and kind of getting my feet wet back stateside. And then boom, COVID hits. So it's like, all right, not only was I isolated, let me get a little bit more isolated. And then just having to fall into these guys like, hey, Dad's Lounge, what's this all about? It's like, I'm a bit of what could be described as an introverted extrovert. So I'll go into a new place and I'll be a fly on the wall, just see what's going on, log into the Dad's Lounge one night, and they immediately, basically, it's sharks in the water. They smelled fresh blood. So it's just like, all right, we got a new guy here. Let's go ahead and interrogate him. So it almost felt like an interrogation for a second, and then it's just like, hey, these guys are really wanting to know what's going on with me because they're in the same boat and same shoes that I am. And immediately, just that sense of community just came right in.
Yeah. Drew.
I mean, I heard so much from each of your stories. A couple of things that jump out to me, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, is the idea of there's this stigma, right? There's this perception out there that really impacts your ability. Matt, you said something about your identity, right? And how challenging that was, and what that does to you, how you feel as a man, as a father, as part of the family, right? That's, I think, really important. And then I also heard this idea of, like what kids need, but also the power of community and what that means. And so, I mean, there's just so much from each of your stories. So I really appreciate you talking about that, bringing up those topics that are really important that people need to be aware of. I think for me, the idea of being able to drop the guard a little bit, that you just talked about, Grady, and build that community is so important. I think that's what we're hoping will happen with these types of conversations we're having. People can see things from a different perspective. But there's also the idea of, I want to touch on one thing that was maybe part of the conversation, but what do this whole traditional provider role, right? Bringing home the bacon, Grady, Matt, you talked about that. And really, this idea of these roles that we place and say that people have. One of the things that we produce in our resources called Involved Fathers, it starts with, what do kids need, right? And kids need, and we simplify it, 6 things. Provider is one of them, but they need nurture, they need love, they need these different things, and both parents can actually provide all 6 of those things. It's when we get stuck in that stigma and we get stuck in these traditional roles that we actually miss what our kids need. And that's where you want to focus. And so your community and what you're doing and the resources really helps, to me, really get dads focused on, what do my kids need and how can I provide that for them, and gets rid of some of these old ideas and old notions and old things that really prevent and get in the way from your ability to provide that for your kids. So anyways, I just really appreciate each of you sharing your stories. But Ed, any thoughts that you want to have, or anything you want to pick up on, built on what you shared?
I really want to just piggyback from what you just shared, Drew, and I'd like to get any one of your inputs about the whole provider role around a father, because each one of you are a little bit different than the still sort of narrative. So what are your thoughts about the whole provider role associated or aligned with fatherhood as we speak in 2022? Sorry.
In my mind, it was always a question of what was best for our family. My wife and I were together for an extended period of time before we got married. I'm trying to think, easily 7 years, 8 years. During that time, we had discussed our plans for the future, and we both wanted kids. I grew up in a family where my mom was a stay-at-home mom and my dad went and worked for a living. My wife, on the other hand, grew up in a family where both of her parents were very, very focused on career. They were both physicians. And, she was raised pretty much by a live-in nanny on the day-to-day basis. I mean, her parents still had a very large influence in her life, and were great parents, but we didn't want that for our kids. We wanted to have one of us at home. And we said that in the end it would be a financial decision. If by some miracle of God I had become the next Bobby Flay or Emeril Lagasse, and perhaps been making more money than a physician makes, she would have become a stay-at-home parent. But that's kind of like saying, if I get that role in the next Tom Cruise movie, the odds are about the same. So I kind of knew I was going to be moving into this role. But even with that advanced knowledge, it didn't prepare me. I don't think anybody can be prepared for the difference having a child makes in your life. It changes every bit of your perspective. And I'm still a provider for my kid. I'm the one who's packing the lunches. I'm the one who's making dinner. I'm the one who's doing laundry. I'm the one who's folding clothes and doing all those day-to-day things. I walk my daughter to school. I walk to pick her up every afternoon. At 1:15 today, I got to go pick my son up from preschool. We're still providers. We're just providing in a different way.
We are fighting as dads. We are fighting a societal idea of provider that has been decades in the making. Our parents, at least my parents, came from a generation that looked as, and I was thinking about this earlier, dad is the provider, mom is the supporter of the children, in that the dad doesn't spend a lot of time supporting the kids except for making money and maybe being there for events and things like that. But he's kind of a little bit on the outside, whereas mom is there to take care of the scratches, the scrapes. My dad was not a diaper changer, and he swears to this day that he will never change a diaper, even if it's he wouldn't change his grandkids' diapers. So, there are certain societal norms that generations build on and work from that makes it harder to make the transition for dads nowadays to make those inroads. I wanted to touch briefly on something that Grady said, talking about the role, what does an at-home dad do? I had an interview last year where the interviewer asked me, so what does a stay-at-home dad do? And I returned back with, what does a stay-at-home mom do? The role of a stay-at-home parent is that it is a parenting role. So whether it's a man or a woman doing the work, it's still the same work. A child still needs support and love and attention and needs to learn how to grow. And it's just a matter of who's the one that's providing that support and that ability at home. We are, fighting an uphill battle, trying to prove that we're doing the same jobs that moms do and doing it well, because of all that societal baggage that has been dropped on us. The Mr. Moms, the dads don't babysit thing is a big thing for us, because there are often times where they're just, even in society today, oh, you're babysitting your kids today? That's nice. You're off from work today? That's great. No, we're doing this every day. And we've learned through research, more recent research, that the younger generations now, dads are saying, I want to be a part of my kid's life. I want to be there at the early stages of their lives and be there in the critical moments, because that's time lost and time you never get back when you can't be there for some of those initial steps. So the provider role for dads it's changing and it's evolving with the needs that dads feel they have for their kids, and the importance that we put on being a parent and being an involved parent.
Yeah, I want to hop in quickly. And add to what you just said. I think it's fantastic, John. The key here is what happens for children when you have parents involved. We're talking about dads specifically. Dad Central is built off of this wealth of research that just validates when you look at what happens to child development when you have a positively involved father, whether that's an at-home dad or a father who is just positively involved in the lives of their children. Every single developmental marker is improved. It's better. So you want healthier kids, you want stronger kids, you want more moral, ethical kids. You need to have positive involved parents, and you need positive involved dads. And the thing that is most valuable is the relationship between the father and the child. And so a dad can maybe not change a diaper, but still have a very warm, loving relationship with their child. But the thing is, you could also change diapers. So I feel like we get so caught up in this idea of we want to categorize people. We want to put them in these boxes that they got to do this. Your dad, you do this, your mom, you do this. And what we miss is what really matters is the relationship you develop with your child and how that helps the child, which then ultimately, if we had a whole bunch of, I'm going off a little bit here. If we had a whole bunch of families that were strong and healthy, what would that mean for our schools? What would that mean for our communities? What would that mean for the future of our society if we had healthier families and healthier children?
Yeah.
And that's why dads are so important, because we're critical to that. And the relationship that we have is so crucial.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Showing society is really important, right? You mentioned schools. Being an at-home dad at an elementary school is, Matt's shaking his head because he knows being an involved parent at a school is difficult, because schools are one of those microcosms of mom is the support. When should we call your mom? What about my dad? My dad's the one that takes care of me during the day. What about him?
2 weeks ago, my wife got a phone call in the middle of her shift in the emergency department of a hospital. Obviously she let it go to voicemail. I am listed as the primary contact on every form that we fill out for our children. My phone number, my name. They literally went past that to get to her name to call her, to let her know that my daughter had a close contact with a COVID positive student, rather than just telling me. And I'd like to point out, my daughter's school knows that I'm the stay-at-home dad. I volunteer there regularly, so I'm guessing it was someone new. But it was very unusual for that to happen. But I've heard of this happening to so many dads all over the place, where that phone call just immediately goes to mom.
Yeah, it just happened to me 2 days ago in my daughter's school application for kindergarten, and my wife called back and said, why are you sending me the emails? When I listed him as a primary caretaker, we're starting off wrong, and they're like, oh, they invented a couple of excuses. And I think that's when we need to step up and say, enough is enough. We can't let society dictate how we live in our lives in our household and what we choose for our families and our kids. I think some of our decisions to become stay-at-home dads are intentional, and some others are circumstantial. So I always talk about the planned versus the unplanned. Whether your situation was planned or unplanned, you have the right to do it. I mean, I think it's about you dictating your own moves, and if that works for your family, then do it. I don't think people ask a lot, is there a recipe or a secret ingredient or some kind of secret to be a stay-at-home dad? And I said, what's the secret? You building your own resources and doing what works for you. Because in this interview, you can probably see all of our circumstances are super different here. But we are united, and we advocate not just for stay-at-home dads, but also fatherhood. I think being a stay-at-home dad can be seen as the ultimate fatherhood move or super move or superpower. But I also encourage all of the dads who are watching or listening to this to try it. Whether it is you have a circumstance, or whether it is take a month of work or take whatever time you can take and really stay at home with your kids and get involved from the morning to the time they go to bed, and you'll see like what really fatherhood is about.
And on behalf of stay-at-home parents, for those dads who are watching who are a working dad, trust me, give your partner the day off. Just wake up one morning, look at your partner and say, you know what? I got everything with the kids today. You go do your thing for the day. It'll be a great experience for you. And I promise you, your partner will be so thankful.
Good stuff. Grady, haven't heard from Grady for a bit. So Grady, come on in.
I was just going to follow up on Matt. We're just saying when you tell your partner to take the day off, just a little hint, there's no such thing as a day off. There's no such thing as time off. It's always going to be in the forefront, in the back of your mind. It's like, it's not just fatherhood or motherhood. It's just parenthood in general. And I want to just add a little blurb from like one of my favorite books of Mice and Men. It's like, all right, the best laid plans. Guess what? You can prepare anything and everything all you want for what's going to happen with your kid. And curveball is just going to get thrown. And just something that you don't plan for is going to happen. And whatever books that are out there giving you the tips and tricks and different suggestions on how to do things, at the end of the day, we're all making it up as we go, and we're just doing. It's not even a matter of being the best parent. It's like we're just being the best parent that we can, given the circumstances and the situation. It's like there's never going to be a perfect way to do it, but what we're trying to show and do as stay-at-home dads is providing probably one of the most crucial steps that you can do as a parent, and that's just showing up.
Yeah.
If you can show up and just be there for your kids, like there's no better feeling that I can have in the world whenever I'm picking up my daughter from preschool and she runs to me, just screaming my name and just squealing with excitement, be happy to see me. She's like, all right, when I get that reaction every single day, I think I'm doing something right.
No problem. Drew, you want to continue?
Well, I had a thought, but I've kind of lost my thought. But so I can continue,
We're
but it
dads,
might
we
just be
understand.
rambling for a little bit.
It's the best laid plans right there.
Exactly. One of the things that you had touched on at the end, Matt and Sergio, is this idea of we haven't talked about it, the partner, right? You've got a partner and you've got a plan, or maybe it's circumstantial. But can you talk about the importance of working with your partner in this process, and what's a crucial piece that's helped you work well as a partnership, a parenting partnership, right? I love this idea of parenthood. We're both parents. We both have roles to play. We both have significant value, and actually the more that we embrace this idea of parenthood, the better our kids are. But can you talk about the idea of working with your partner?
Yeah, so one of those important steps is being on the same page, knowing what you want to teach your kids, instill in your kids, and how can you come to an agreement on how you're going to parent. What are your rules? What is your goal? Do you want to be an adventurous family and go out all the time and go around and hike? Or do you want to be nurturing parents that stay at home and read to them and play games with them? Is it both of those things? How do you discipline? Like I had a great experience. When kids are really young, they don't understand necessarily the concept of doing something bad, right? And so with our oldest, when he was about 3 years old, we tried to teach him the concept of a timeout and what that meant. And to illustrate it, I did something bad, and my wife said, "No, that's a timeout." and put me in timeout. Well, my son just kind of lost it. He's like, no, don't put dad in timeout. No, 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 no. And got really upset. But that became a learning moment for him. He understood what a timeout meant. So it's working together to help a child learn and develop and grow. When you're doing it together instead of doing it in isolation, it has a profound positive effect, because you're seeing, the children are seeing the parents working as a team to come to whatever resolution is going on at a particular moment. And that goes for education as well. Being involved at school as parents to discuss how you want your child to develop with teachers, being there for that as a team versus going separately, has a big impact, because the teacher sees your involvement in your child and being there, especially for fathers, right? So many of the parents that go to, I say parents, I don't know why I'm even doing that, but parents that go to a parent teacher conference, it's usually mom. Dad's not usually there. So to be able to be there as a team shows your participation in your care, in the development of your kids. So working together with your partner is crucial in developing good, positive outcomes for your kids.
Anyone else want to add on to that?
Just like Jonathan said, it's like getting on that same page. You're working as a team, and it's not necessarily just for the sake of handling your child. It's for the sake of raising them how you want to raise them. You get on the same page. You have to have a lot of open communication. That's super important. It's just the communication part. You have to know what each other's intentions are, whether or not you're going about it the same way to get the same kind of outcome. That's why communicate a little bit more, make things more clear, because there's gonna be some tension. There's gonna be some friction. That's a part of society. That's part of being a family. It's not all roses every single day. There's going to be some sort of bad stuff that happens, but it's contending around it, because even with the bad stuff that does happen, that's going to be minor, and life is still going to go on. We've still got the job to raise our children.
I think one of the big ones that we practice in our house is that we make sure that neither one of us ever undermines the other one. It's really important. There have been times that I have been doing something elsewhere in the house, and I will walk into the room, and my wife will be dealing with a situation with the kids, and it's probably not the way that I would be dealing with it. And in my experience, it may not even be a way that I think is going to be the best solution for the problem, but that's not the moment to bring that up. The kids need to see that mom and dad are a team, and you support them in every way that you can in that moment. And then after the kids go to bed, or after the kids are off doing something, when the two of you can have a conversation one-on-one about it, that's the time to say, hon, I understand what you were trying to do, but in the past, this is what I have done that worked better. As one thing. Another one that my wife has gotten me on with a big kick lately that I think has made a huge difference in our lives, not just in parenting, but across the board, is to assume goodwill. As a culture, as society, especially these days, especially online, where you don't get to hear a tone of voice in what you're reading, all too often we lend a tone of voice to something that's the tone we hear in our head. And it may not be the tone that statement is meant with. And so we've gotten on this big kick of just, until proven otherwise, just assume that someone means something in a positive way when they say it, and don't look for the negative. And that has prevented a lot of bickering in our household.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. As you continue to share more, as we ask these questions, I hear a lot of wisdom, a lot of, learned experience, right? Sort of through in the trenches, working hard at this. And, what I wanted you to talk about is the value of, the network, but specifically, Home Dad Con, which is your conference where you're bringing uh, at home dads together as a tool to create resources to empower and equip dads to go back home and to do all these things that you've talked about. So talk to us a little bit about Home Dad Con, what it's about, why people should get involved. Just give it to us.
All right,
So,
I'll chime in here. Home Dad Con is a professional parenting conference. It's the best way to put it. We are there to provide resources, speakers, presentations that help dads develop to be better dads. There's some fun involved, there's some seriousness involved, but it's all centered around how do we help dads improve and become better at what they do, whether it's through those programs or whether it's through conversations between the individuals, and building the community. Those are all important tools that help dads become better dads, and they realize that they're not alone, especially those guys who come who are isolated, that they still feel invisible and they haven't found their community yet. We provide that opportunity to build community for them and provide them the tools that they can use. And every year it's a little bit different. We have different themes. I think this year's theme is rites of passage.
milestones.
Oh, milestones, excuse me. And milestones are very important. We have guys who have come to the conference for years, a decade and more, and some who are new. So we've got this blend of guys bringing a blend of experiences, and it becomes so it's almost like self-motivating. It helps provide you the self-motivation to go back and do better than you've done before, and know that you are an important part and play an important role at home.
I gotta say, this is part of also the recharge time that
Yes.
we as at home dads need. And what better recharge time to spend time with other dads from different parts of the world who come from different scenarios, different backgrounds, and learn about parenting. And I think that's one important aspect that we need to see. It's, the mental health time that we are providing, the resources that we're providing. I think every dad, at least whether you're a stay-at-home dad or not, at least one time you should visit the Home Dad Con. It's something that will give you a different perspective in life. And guess what? This is what my wife says. She said, when you go there and you come back a different person, a different man, full of energy, full of mindfulness. And I think that's something that money can't buy, honestly. It's just the setting, it's the programming, it's the members. It's something that you have to be there to experience it.
I can honestly say probably one of the most powerful moments of Home Dad Con for me was when I went to my very first one. I had been at the convention for probably about maybe 2-3 hours before it clicked in my head what the big thing that was so different was. And that was the fact that I walked into a room where I knew no one, absolutely no one, and spent some time going and introducing myself around. And not once did somebody look at me and say, "So what do you do for a living?" Which is the single most common thing that adults ask each other when they meet. It's the grown-up equivalent of "What's your major?" Nobody asked. And I didn't have to go through that awkward moment of going, "Oh, I'm a full-time stay-at-home dad," and watching them go, "I don't know what to talk to you about," and then go find somewhere else to be. But the speakers that we bring in, it's phenomenal. There was a picture at the very beginning of the scroll of Dr. Anna Manchin, who we brought in from Oxford in England. Yeah, that's her. She is I'm trying to remember, what was it, an evolutionary anthropologist who focuses on the like literal importance of fathers in children's lives and development. You can see in the background, she has slides up of actual brain scans of kids. And by the same token, as serious as that is, we had a breakout session in Portland, Oregon that was all about making balloon animals. You know, we brought in professional clowns to teach us how to make balloon animals for your kids. You know, we've had people come in to talk about cooking and meal planning, playing games with your kids. The first one I went to,
Finances.
yeah, the first one I went to, we actually had somebody come in and talk about gun safety, which was really important to me because we're not a firearm family. However, I do live in the southern portion of the United States, so I want to know what to teach my kids because I'm fairly certain sooner or later they're going to be at somebody's house and that person's going to have guns. You know, so I mean, there's a little something for everybody. That's a picture of everybody that was at our convention this past year in Cincinnati. That's JHG right there on the computer because he was stuck at home due to COVID.
I have an epidemiologist
Wow.
as a spouse, and so she had concerns, and I had to I make sure that I honored those concerns. So
And that was my first home dad con, going to Cincinnati and just meeting all these guys, at least finally in person. I had initially started meeting all the guys through the Monday night dad's lounge. Go in there and it's essentially, for lack of a better term, happy hour. It's guys just showing off what they're drinking and as far as beers. And it's not necessarily just revolving around drinking, but it's guys just being able to chat and BS and just take each other in. And I finally got to meet these guys in person at DadCon. It's like I had known all these guys for years, and I just finally got to meet them again for the first time. And it was we just kind of rolled into it all. Have instant friends, have this instant common bond with everybody. Go for it.
I just want to get some backstory with the Brian Dickerson Memorial. Any one of you, just to highlight the importance of this memorial scholarship.
sure, Brian Dixon was an at-home dad. He was a blogger and one of the OGs, shall we say, of the network. He knew a lot of the guys that were going there. He never got a chance to go to the convention. He developed cancer and passed away before he could do so. This was back around 2006. And in response to that, the guys on the board of the organization at the time set up this scholarship. So dads who are that have certain concerns and don't have the means to get there themselves, we can get some of them there because they know, and Brian knew, of the importance of the community and being involved and being being accepted in this microcosm of parenting. And so the scholarship is in his name. We've done a lot of work to really find and hone and look for dads who really could use the support and the development, because they might be isolated, and we have applicants who their spouse has applied for them, or a friend has applied for them because they know of the value of the convention and they know that their spouse needs that help and support. So it's been a very good scholarship for dads out there who could use it and need it.
And I
Thank
just want to point out that there have been several dads who attended their first convention using the Brian Dixon Memorial Scholarship, who I've seen at several other conventions afterwards, that after experiencing their first convention, they went home and realized how important of an experience this was, and rearranged, like, family budget to make sure that they had that money set aside so that next year they could do it again.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Drew.
Yeah. What I really appreciate is just the power of connection that I think is National At Home Dad Network has created. And I love the parts of it that really level the playing field. What you're doing is you're connecting over this common experience of being a dad and what that means for your family and for your children. And it's just a great equalizer,
Mhm.
and it's very powerful, and it's designed to help you dads go back home and do the work that they need to do to build successful, confident children, to build strong families, and to be the best version of themselves. And that's really what I think is so exciting about having these conversations, because that's our goal at Dad Central, is to see dads show up at their best for the people who matter most, and that's their families, and to equip them and give them tools and resources to do that. And that's exactly what you're doing with this network and with this conference. So it's just been, for me, a real great honor to get to know each of you, to be connected to you now, and to be able to support each other as we keep going
Mhm.
forward. So thank you so much for being part of the Dad Central show and sharing with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our-
absolutely. Thank you.
Any of you have any final words that you'd like to share with our community?
I would like to say, tell a father about us, about the organization, about the convention, about the resources that are available throughout the year. I think it's not only talking about it, but going into the action. And we as an organization are, year-round organization that supports at-home dads. So tell somebody about this. You might never know who needs the information. Tell people you saw the show, and tell them about the website, or just check out our social media. You might never know who needs a helping hand or a support group, or an organization that dedicates themselves to at home parents. So just spread the word.
And get one of those T-shirts. Dads
Yeah.
don't babysit. Well, parents. I want to see more of those.
I will
Absolutely.
point out that part of the proceeds from every T-shirt goes directly into the Brian Dixon Memorial Fund. That is one of the largest drives that supplies the scholarship fund itself.
Excellent. 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 What's the biggest size of T-shirts come in?
I want to say 3XL.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have a potential buy here, because anything under 3XL, not gonna happen. Maybe I'll buy it and give it to somebody else, but I'm a 3XL guy.
One thing that I will say is that I want people to understand that the network is open to all dads, whatever those dads may look like, whatever kind of family they come from. We have dads from all walks of life. When we say that we are inclusive, we are a very inclusive branch. We have dads who come from same-sex marriages. We have trans dads. We have dads from every background. As far as we're concerned, if you're a dad, you're a dad.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And just coming to the site, trying to join the organization, becoming a member, no matter how active a role that you're taking in that, just the fact that you've kind of looked into it it's already showing that you are interested in trying to become a better parent for your child.
Yeah, and I will say that being a member of the organization, yes, we would love that it's the dads that are doing it, but you can be a supporting member as well. You don't necessarily have to be a dad to be a member. There is that opportunity. So if there are moms out there who support what we do, become a member, because your support helps your spouse become a better parent as well, especially if you are co-parenting, especially if you're trying to do it together. Our resources are just as good for the co-parenting dad or the part-time working dad as it is for the at-home dad.
All right. On that
Absolutely.
note, gentlemen, to you and your team and your community, we would like to say thank you for sharing the time with us. For each one of you, not only as dads, but the heart work that you do with the organization. We want to bless you, past, present, and future. We're looking forward to helping you and helping each other have better dads, better families, so we can have a better world. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to share with us today. And we got a relay race to run, so we got to do it, guys.
You got it.
Absolutely.
For your
Yeah.
time. Be well.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
All
All right, Drew, another epic conversation.
As always, Ed, it's great to connect with other dads, other men, anyone who's aligned with this idea of helping raise great kids. Our tools to raise confident, successful kids really starts with dads investing in themselves and investing in that process. So we learn something every conversation, got something practical to take away, and we've got more people in our network that we can support each other with. So that's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful building a community that is like-minded and right alignment. So it's really exciting. So another great one, more to come, family. But if you want to watch replays of the Dad Central show, there you go. There's the website address. You go to dadcentral.ca/podcast. Website for resources that we offer, dadcentral.ca. And we have also email address, podcast at dadcentral.ca. And of course, we'd like to again thank Dove Men Care, who sponsors the Dad Central Care. I always get this mixed up. Sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. This plus thing's always getting me. The Dove Men Plus Care. And Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of the man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. We look forward to more epic conversations. Keep in contact with us. Follow us on our social media platforms, because when we work together, we win together. Thanks very much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Be well.